Hello, welcome to Wednesday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. I'm delighted to say I am joined by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith, how's it going?
Not that delighted that you could make it your way into the Hotline Live studio, though, Daniel. I see, disappointingly, again.
Sorry, Keith, you're breaking up there. How's it going apart from that? Everything good?
Yeah, not bad. Obviously, we had a late night special last night, so I was already dressed with the jammies on and straight to bed. Which, by the way, I want to refute this and I want to nail this right from the start. I don't own such a thing as a pair of pajamas. I haven't done since I was about 10-year-old. That was a shirt last night, and let's be very clear about that before we proceed any further.
I believe you. Millions wouldn't, but I believe you. But actually, you mentioned
sleep wearing pajamas. Do you?
Oh no, I've never owned a pair of pajamas.
Or even when you're a kid?
I don't think so. No. We'll see.
It's a strange upbringing, but carry on.
You mentioned at last night's late night special show. Before we go any further with today's show, I think we should make our viewers aware of another special edition we've got coming up.
Did say last night that we had a kind of special edition in store that we were hoping to get onto there at some point this week, and we will be doing that. And what we need is for anybody out there that wants to ask a question to Paul Murray, the man who has played such an integral part in the situation around Rangers over the last over a decade now, and the man with the finest head of hair in football. He's coming into the studio tomorrow. We're going to do a special sort of pre-record, so you won't be able to get your questions in live for Paul. But if there are people out there, and I'm sure there will be plenty of them, who have got any questions they want to ask Paul, it's a no-holds-barred sort of thing. So if you've got questions that you want to put to Paul, then please do it. And I think we're going to, the show will be on over the weekend, maybe on Friday or something over the weekend anyway. And I'm looking forward to it because, Paul not only had, played such an integral part in the takeover, which eventually managed to free Rangers of Mike Ashley after the Charles Greens and the Craig White sort of a chaos. Paul helped stabilise the club with Dave King, and latterly over these last few months, he's been quite heavily involved as well in helping to facilitate Andrew Kavanagh's American takeover. So there's a lot to get through, and I think it's going to be a fascinating chat. So I'm looking forward to that very much.
Aye, and as Keith says, if you want to put any questions to Paul Murray, you can do so in this stream if you like. But if you go onto Record Sports Facebook and Twitter pages, you'll see that graphic that I put up just a moment ago. That's pinned to and Instagram as well. Actually, that's pinned on all of our pages. If you want to leave a comment, a question underneath that, we will get to it for ahead of tomorrow's recording. Back to tonight's show though, Keith.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to say we're joined all the way from Como by the one and only Michael Gannon.
Yeah, speaking of fantastic Scottish football barnets, I'm not one of them. I've not got one of them, unfortunately. But I'm here in Como.
Come over.
Come over, aye, get to that point. The 4G picture I'm looking for. Fly back home via Turkey.
Mick once came away with a great line to me. He said, I think I've only got about 12 haircuts left.
Well, that was about a year ago. I think I'm doing about 7 now. the final countdown. We're into single figures, unfortunately.
Well, Mick, I can't feel too bad for you because I was in charge of putting up your video earlier on, your little sort of piece to camera from Como. Yeah. And it looks like you're really struggling. It looks like a difficult place to work.
Hell on earth.
I'll tell you what, I mean, the things the record put me through, honestly, I mean, a week in Como, I mean, it's absolutely hellish. I mean, really is. I mean, I'll tell you what, I've been to some nice places. This has to be right up there. This is one of the nicest places I've had the kind of pleasure and privilege to go to. But at the Como Stadium just now, actually, the game tonight, Como against Al Ahly, so it's the Raven team. But we're meeting Celtic guys here for a press conference as well. So we're going to try and do 2 for 1, get the game as well. The stadium's not great, by the way, and you probably see behind me, it's not the most spectacular of stadiums.
Oh, I'm gutted for you, Mick.
But the town itself is off the chart. But apparently George Clooney's got a gaff up the hill. And and he's recommending a few restaurants we can go to. At least walk past them. We're going into them. We can walk past them. But
did you manage to convince him you were actually Will Ferrell just over on a short break?
Will Ferrell, forgot my wallet. Can you sub me a dinner?
If we could get him on the hotline live, that'd be great. If you can have a word, maybe.
I'll try and see him tonight. We're seeking the same places, obviously, so we'll maybe bump into him and ask him to come on.
Mick, before we start, I'm so gutted. I'm jealous. It's not often that I've said this through the course of our many years together. I'm jealous. But the Como's one for the bucket list I've not managed to tick off yet. So you've done well there. All expenses paid.
I must admit, it is one of the nicest places we've seen. I mean, today I've done a wee bit of kind of sightseeing this morning, get the lie of the land. Went up the funicular, up the hill to the kind of highest point, called Bernati, and you can see the whole bay, and it's like absolutely sensational. It really is. It's any fans coming here for the weekend or for the week of in for an absolute treat. A wee bit expensive, right enough. It's all right. All expenses paid. Some expenses will not be paid, Keith. I think, unfortunately. I dread to think what's going to happen when they see this list I'm hitting them with. So yeah, but you go to the restaurant. All I can afford is the Parmesan cheese. I can't get the pasta.
Well, Mick, you're obviously you're there. Brendan Rodgers and Celtic, they haven't spoke yet to the press, have they? That's later on this evening.
Not here. Just arriving this afternoon. We'll meet them in pretty much 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and we'll see what's happening. Yeah, obviously, listen, it's transfers, isn't it? It's all fans are obsessing about who's coming in. A few names getting bounced about, but it's quite quiet at this moment in time. We're going to see what the latest is in a few of them. But that's what we'll find out shortly. Also, they're playing against Ajax tomorrow night. It's a good game as well. And given the way Celtic play in pre-season, it could be another cracker. But it's a very good test for them, that's the thing. Tonight, be interesting. We've got Como here tonight, and we're going to try and see if we can see Nicholas Kuhn playing as well if he leads a game. See if he fancies a wee chat. We'll see. There's a wee bit kind of at times not the most chatty at times in his time at Celtic, so we'll wait and see. But hopefully, we're in the mood later on. But we'll see how it goes. I
tell you, Mike, the idea of Kieran Tierney coming up against Nicholas Kuhn will probably get a few juices flowing.
Yeah, well, if Celtic win tomorrow, they'll get into the final, which will be Sunday. They lose, they play Saturday against the loser tonight. So there's every chance that it could be up against you at some point. So that'd be an interesting battle, wouldn't it?
A guy that couldn't wait to come back versus a guy that couldn't wait to get away.
Well, exactly. It's like contrast, isn't it? But we'll see what happens tonight. But yeah, that'd be an interesting one.
In the comments, Mark is asking, just out of curiosity, how much are the tickets going for? Do you have any idea?
I'm not entirely sure, but what I do know is that this wee town is kind of giving it the big licks. So everywhere you go, there's posters. There's a fan zone right down at the kind of harbour where all the boats can come in for the tours. So they're giving it a big treatment. They're going to do this every year, apparently, Como. They're going to have the Como Cup every year. So I've already put the case forward that Celtic should be involved or Rangers should be involved every single year. An annual occurrence, an annual trip. In fact, I put it forward that there should be a record sport long weekend away every year to Como.
I completely agree, aye.
Well, maybe Hotline Live could get involved in some sort of sponsorship package.
Oh, I think it's
live
possible.
Broadcast deal.
Yeah, the Lombardy Tourist Board can put us up. I think so.
Singing the Blues asks, does your fee for the trip come out of petty cash, Mick, or is that?
Well, aye, it's very petty cash.
Extremely petty.
My £2.50 a day allowance isn't going to go very far, unfortunately. I can afford a glass of water.
Well, Mick, you mentioned transfers there. One name that's come up over the last 24 hours is Jacob Breum. I don't know if I'm butchering his name. The Danish winger who's at Go Ahead Eagles in the Netherlands. Yeah. Do you know any more about it?
Listen, this is one that came up about 6 weeks ago, I think. It I think there might have been tentative approaches then and nothing much kind of since. So, I think he's another name that's been bouncing about for a few weeks now. It sounds like his club are wanting a hefty whack for a guy who's, listen, sounds like a good player, but I don't know if it's what Celtic wanting to go to at this point in time. They've got quite a few players and they're kind of tiptoeing and dancing around right now, Celtic. I mean, the Balak Wisher one's not going away. Again, the thing with these things, the prices are starting to start to come down. The more desperate these clubs are to sell them. Or there could be more interest and the price goes up. So it's a weird kind of dance they're doing right now, Celtic. And it happens every kind of year. You get this kind of wee lull period after the initial kind of burst of signings, and then it's like a wait and see, and then they'll start to kind of ramp it up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to happen soon. I think Brendan Rodgers is now getting to a point he really wants these guys in the door because he is light. So I think you'll start to see him. I mean, I think he's been quite calm about it. We'll ask him again tonight, and I'll be interested to see how he responds to it tonight because he's been quite chilled out about it so far. I think you might see a wee change. I think he might start ramping up a wee bit himself. Listen, it's time to get the pen out, get the checkbook out, and get these deals over the line.
Well, Mick, it's kind of 10 days to curtain up in the Championship defence. So,
yeah,
you know, I think in an ideal world, Brendan Rodgers would have already had the guys that he was looking for. They'd be in the door. They'd be part of this camp. So they're allowing this to get away from him a little bit, but it's not for the first time. We have seen it previously.
No, but listen, you look at the players that are coming in and it's been late in windows. I mean, last year it was Trusty and Engels and McCowan in the last few days of the window. You go back, even a couple of years ago, you get Cameron Carter-Vickers was a midnight signing on deadline day. It is a pretty common occurrence. So it can take time, and sometimes it's worth waiting for. But I think I think that the start of the league campaign is a bit of a false kind of impression because it's a Champions League playoff. That's the one. I think you want them in the door. You want them playing 2 or 3 weeks in domestic football, so they're ready for that playoff. Because that playoff is the be all and end all.
Yeah,
it's absolutely massive. So yeah, I think you're right. I think the cut-off point in terms of league, I don't think it's that much of a line in the sand. But
but you need to get them bedded in.
Get them in, get bedded in. Yeah, exactly.
On the Bream stuff, Jacob Bream, Mick, John writes in saying, why are Celtic wasting time with paltry £1.5 million bids? How would they react if someone bid £5 million for Maeda this summer? It's just a complete joke. Yeah. I think you summed it up pretty nicely, though.
Yeah, but that's it. Listen, as I said, I tended to approach 6 weeks ago and you get test the water, and then you find out that's the kind of value. It might not. Listen, you need to be careful. It might not be worth £5 million. I mean, fans jump on these guys and go, "Oh, this guy sounds like a world beater." Listen, this Feast Garden was the one for 18 months was the answer to everything, right? Oh, he's worth pay £12 million, but he goes for £7 million, and it turns out Celtic after a while thought, well, I'm not sure he fits into where we play anyway. So you got to be careful in that kind of stuff as well. That fans are so desperate for any signings, they get a name and they run with it, and the guy gets better by the week. Do you know what I mean? It's like this guy's a superstar. This guy they're chasing, and it's not always the case. I might like the sound of him, but there's plenty of other guys in that same bracket as well. So yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on some of these names.
A couple of other bits and bobs to do with Celtic. Quan never managed a competitive appearance, but he's away to FC Nantes. Seems like a good move for him. And Jeffrey Sloop. Jeffrey Sloop's apparently signing for Norwich.
Listen, fair play to Jeffrey Sloop. Good luck to him. Came in, had a good game against Bayern. Apart from that, wasn't very good. But a nice guy. Done what he had to do. I don't think it was ever realistic to have him coming back anyway.
No.
In terms of Quan, I mean, never really done it many. I think he's one of the disastrous debuts. I think was it not in James Forrest's testimonial? Was it when his Spanish team? Oh, he's 45 minutes. It was a horror show stuff, and never seen again. I thought he did all right at times at St Mirren and Hibs. I thought he looked all right. Maybe kind of found I think maybe final level, but he's got a good move. I mean, he's technically pretty good. I think the hear him scaring world of Scottish football wasn't really his kind of forte. But he might flourish in France. But a good move for him anyway.
One of the names that obviously Daniel you have fixated on, Evan Ferguson, as he's finalised a 1 season long loan deal to Roma today. I think there's an obligation to buy at the end of that. Is it an obligation? But I mean, you did tell us, Dan, this is one you backed. You said you can take this one to the bank. At the end of this transfer window, he'll be a Celtic player. Hasn't really worked out the way you envisaged.
I don't know what's going on tonight, Keith. You keep breaking up. But anyway, Mick, no, he's apparently it's a €40 million option that Roma have.
Bit of an obstacle.
Might be a touch outside Celtic's budget, but we'll see. You never know.
Yeah, you get. Listen, there's certain stories that fire out about in July, isn't there? And then by the time you get closer to August, the reality bites in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think a lot of these guys in the English Premier League as well, you have to remember, these guys are on money that is beyond comprehension to us in Scotland. I was talking to the guys at Newcastle, and they were, and a few friends I know from down there from my time working there, and he was saying, "Oh, what about this player? This is the guy who do a job for Celtic." And I was like, "I'm sure he would, but what's he on? Like 75 grand a week." And I'm talking like reserve goalkeepers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, mind-boggling figures. So you can forget all that kind of stuff sometimes.
We've got a couple of people asking, Mick, if there's any whispers that you can tell us about Brendan Rodgers and possibly Daizen Maeda signing the new deals. I feel like I've asked this, ad nauseum, but anything else you can tell us in regards to that?
Daizen Maeda, they've kicked off talks, and that's the phrase is their talks are kind of began, ongoing, in discussions. He's got 2 years left, so it's not like a gun to anybody's head at the moment in time, but they want to get this done, I think, in this window. Otherwise, because his value is probably as high as it can be at this point in time. Mm-hmm. But I think they've started. It depends on a lot of things. I think keeping him in this season is huge for Celtic. I mean, I know it's an old cliche, but if they can keep him through this window, it's as good as a signing. But he's a guy that absolutely sets tone for the whole club. I think losing Kuhn was a blow, but not that big a blow in terms of money. Losing Maeda for however much money they make would be absolutely a massive blow. Yeah. But you got to get the point that if the money bid come in, you need to sell at this point in time. But it still would be huge and irreplaceable, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've said, Mike, I'm like you. I think that these negotiations have started, and I'm not saying Celtic are pushing it an open door in terms of getting it finalised, but I think there's a willingness on both sides of the negotiating table to get a deal done. I think there's a very good chance that he'll extend by a couple of years.
Listen, there's every chance he'll extend, get a contract bump in wages, but a bid will still come in, and that could change the whole rhetoric anyway. So it's an insurance policy.
That's true. That's true. That's exactly what it is.
That's our Celtic party arriving, so I'm going to have to dash off. So I need to make a sprint down the stairs, get my work done.
It's
always a glass of Chianti.
It's just the ice cream van pulling up the gelatos have come.
Yeah, that too.
Well, Mick, I hope it's not too taxing for you, and I hope it's a good trip.
See you later, guys.
Cheers, Michael.
Michael Gannon there. I mean, I do like a Mick appearance, but I do get a little bit jealous, Keith, when it's from Como.
Yeah, that's the first. As I said, there's been very, very seldom I've had moments in my life. In fact, I'm so seldom. I think this might be the only one where I've actually been really jealous. I'm Mick. That's a place I've been meaning to go to for years.
I was lucky enough to go a few months.
I wouldn't want to go there with Mick though. Do you know what I mean? Of all the kind of romantic spots and all that, I'm not sure. As much as I love him and I love his company, I'm not sure that Lake Como with Mick Gannon would be an ideal scenario.
You want to save that for Scott McDermott, surely?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to throw a couple of other Celtic questions at Mick, but I'll maybe throw them at you instead. AJSC Tech says, what is the minimum amount Celtic need to spend in this window to ensure Rodgers signs a new contract? 20 million? What is that number? And your Ma says, I've said on here for months, Celtic won't spend like we'd want. Well, Rodgers isn't committed to a long-term deal, won't invest either until this year's Champions League money guaranteed. We've seen this movie before.
Yeah, a couple of interesting points. I don't think you could put an actual number on what Celtic need to spend in order to satisfy Brendan Rodgers, because you might get a bargain for, who's to say that you don't find a bargain for £5 million who, is worth something, multiples of that. But I just think they need to match his ambition. So I don't think there's actually a number that if Celtic were to spend below it or above it or whatever, that would change anything. I think it's entirely a matter of Brendan Rodgers identifying the players that he believes would make his first team stronger and Champions League ready, as far as any Scottish team could be Champions League ready. And then Celtic's board showing the same level of ambition and commitment, and going out there and getting the deals done. That's the key part. As we were talking about there, this £1.5 million bid for a winger, that all smacks again of the first tier transfer strategy philosophy that we think Celtic's board might be employing this summer.
Yeah,
which gets away from the way that Brendan Rodgers wants it done, which is, take more of a risk, be prepared to pay a bigger premium and hope that you get your financial return on that. His problem, as we've discussed, Daniel, £26 million last summer, and I'm not sure that any one of the three players that Celtic signed would turn a profit if the board decided to sell him tomorrow. That's where it conflicts with the strategy that Celtic, the kind of well-known model that Celtic's board have employed over the years. They went a different way last summer, but Brendan Rodgers, conversely, can point to, well, look at the amount of money that we got in through the Champions League to justify the fact that that money was spent, and these players will be longer-term investments. It's not just, turn them over and get them out the door and double your money on it in one season. There's room for development with Engels. You've said already, Daniel, you think Trusty is going to have a big season this season.
Yep.
Brendan Rodgers has a history of improving players when he gets a bit of time to work with them. So who's to say that doesn't happen? Adam Ida, a lot of potential there, but a lot to prove this season. But these are ones that actually count against the Brendan Rodgers model, as opposed to the Celtic model. So again, it comes back to what we got now, just 5 weeks to the end of this transfer window. And these are going to be 5 make or break weeks in terms of Brendan Rodgers and his relationship with the Celtic board, and his not so much personal relationship, but his working relationship moving forward. Because I think they will have to show signs over this period before the end of this transfer window that they are prepared to match his ambition. And if they don't do that, then I think persuading Brendan Rodgers to commit for the longer haul is going to be difficult.
George, you can see in the comments there saying that Daizen Maeda's family are too settled here, and Mark goes further saying he seemed very happy at the club for football and family reasons. If Celtic were to sell him, Rodgers is off. I mean, it's a big call, but see if Celtic did, against Rodgers' wishes, sell Daizen Maeda.
Well, listen, that again, it all depends on, what sort of money is on the table. If somebody comes in and makes a ridiculous offer, it genuinely could be an offer that Celtic couldn't afford to refuse.
Yeah. And
I think Brendan Rodgers, he's not daft. He understands the way the business model works. But I think what I would be fairly certain on is if a stupid amount of money was put on the table for Daizen Maeda, Brendan Rodgers is well within his rights to say, right, give me it because we're spending it here, here and here.
Yeah.
So, look, I don't think it's as black and white. There's a bit of nuance in there, a bit of shade and a bit of grey area. But I come back to one thing. By the end of this transfer window, Brendan Rodgers is going to have to feel as if they're aligned and the board are backing him and they're as ambitious as he is for his side. Otherwise, I think negotiating a longer-term contract with Brendan might be difficult. What he wants to do, Daniel, and we've said it over and over, is he doesn't need an overhaul. He doesn't need a squad rebuild. What he really needs is 3 or 4 signings that he believes will improve the quality of his first team and make them more able to compete at the highest possible level in the cutthroat environment of the Champions League. And he's had a very good crack at it last year, and if he can tweak it and improve it, take it up by another 10-15% in level, then he'll go into this Champions League campaign, if Celtic can get through the qualifiers, feeling they're really well equipped now to go and play the sort of football he wants to see played on the biggest stage of all. And that, is good for Celtic's reputation on the international stage, and it's very good for Brendan Rodgers' reputation. What he won't want to do is go into a gunfight armed with a water pistol. And that's why the next 5 weeks will be such a sort of potentially crucial period in terms of the relationship between Brendan and Celtic moving forward.
JJ makes a good point, I think, in the comments. He says it's about playing at the highest level for Daizen, keeping his place in the Japan squad as well. His next move can't affect that. Obviously, that next season will be a World Cup year. You know how important that is to the Japanese players. I think having seen what happened to Kyogo.
Yeah, but Kyogo, and maybe you can cut him a bit of slack because I think he was chasing something, Kyogo, wasn't he? He wasn't getting a regular start, and maybe he thought if he moved and the grass was greener someplace else, it might expedite his acceleration into a starting position in the Japanese, and it hasn't worked. And now, when you look at it, where were you better off, Celtic or Birmingham?
No.
What enhances your international chances? But for Maeda, it's a very different kettle of fish in that he was already the first pick. Kyogo was trying to effectively take his shirt and couldn't do it, even though he was the central striker for Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, Maeda played in the World Cup as Japan's number 9, as the sort of player that you don't think the Japanese side would even countenance going to a World Cup without, regardless of where he's playing. But he's settled, he's happy. Playing for Celtic hasn't diluted his chances of getting caps for his country. And if he's happy and he's settled and he's on the sort of form that he was in last season, and which, by the way, he already is showing flashes of in this pre-season, he's got nothing to worry about. I think he's content. I just don't see it being a problem. I think Celtic can give him a nice pay rise, can extend the contract, and everybody's happy. And there will be a point in time when it's right for Daizen Maeda to move on. I just don't feel that time is now.
Paul makes a really important point in the comments. He says, glad to see Keith without his Hugh Hefner jammies for last night.
Yeah, okay. I should have had a cravat on. A smoking jacket, yeah.
We've got plenty of comments coming in on Celtic. John says, I think the board are not spending and are scared of another Ida. Jimmy also saying to me directly that every player has a price. I would just come back and say that I think after Kuhn, especially with Kuhn going this summer, it would need to be something really silly for Celtic to even countenance Maeda going as well.
Yeah, but, well, I agree, but you know, there will be some deals. There are occasionally some deals that just it defies logic to turn them down. So if somebody wants to come, and Daizen Maeda has shown at the highest possible level what an attribute he can be. Mm-hmm. So there might be somebody out there that says, do you know what, he's worth it. He's worth whatever Celtic want and a wee bit more. And he still might constitute a bargain.
Yeah.
Because you've seen guys going down from Celtic down to, you know, whether it's the lower reaches of the Premier League. I'm talking about your Van Dijks and your Wanyamas. And then once Premier League clubs the bigger Premier League clubs have a look, they say, oh, this guy can cut it in the Premier League. They don't mind paying that extra premium to buy him for Southampton, even if it's 10 times as much as they could have got him for from Celtic. They actually wait for him to go someplace else and then see what's he like in the Premier League. All right, okay, he's brilliant. Well, we'll go and spend £80 million on him when you could have got him for 10, 15. So there's a lot of that some people might be looking at a guy like Daizen Maeda. Clever clubs, your Brightons, all these clubs down there. And I know that, you know, Celtic fans will go, Brighton, why you go Brighton? But it is the English Premier League. And if Brighton were to make a sort of risk assessment and think 25, £30 million for him, keep him 18 months, you're probably selling him for 60, maybe even more than that. Because that is, you know, every club's got their own business model, and that seems to be Brighton. They're very good at it.
Mark makes the point that he said it before, 50 million or Daizen Maeda goes nowhere. And Mo says Daniel has this view that everyone in the world wants to stay at Celtic and it's the club's call to keep or sell him. I mean, if he's under contract, Celtic, I guess, can. But
yeah,
look,
Dan, you're under contract here, right? You know, if somebody offered you £20 a week to do this for a national broadcaster, and we said, nah, you're not going. You're not going. You can stick to the £5.50. There's no way that you're trebling and more your wages. We'd get a very unhappy version of you hosting this show. It wouldn't be fun for you. It wouldn't be fun for any of us. You could become hard work, Daniel. Yeah. And at which point we might need to decide, you know what, we'll cash in. I think if we really push, we could probably get about 30 quid and a fee. and well, look, everybody's happy at that point.
If any other outlets are watching, 30 quid seems like a fair price. And just to go back to Mo, I take on board your point, absolutely. If Maeda wants to go, he's probably going to go.
But this is the point with Maeda. I don't think he's chasing the coin. I think that he is happy. However, that's dead easy for me to say, and it's dead easy for Daizen Maeda to feel like that. But if somebody was to come in and offer the sort of money we're just talking about there in terms of fees, well, that comes with an appropriate wage packet. And the appropriate wage packet will be multiples of what he's on at Celtic. And I don't care who you are, how satisfied you are with your life and your surroundings and your environment. if somebody's going to, you know, multiply your wage packet by 10, it needs to be factored into the decision-making process, doesn't it?
Tommy says became hard work. I mean, he seems to be implying that I already am hard work, so thanks for that, Tommy. And Rebel says BBC ain't paying 20 for Dan Keith. So this is going really well, this episode. Excellent. That's a real confidence boost for me.
Try to drive it up, Rebel X.
Aye. Ouija says young Daniel is worth £6 hour all day long. That's brilliant. Excellent.
Oh, Dan, don't you start getting deflated on me here. I can do without the ego. Is this you starting? Is this it?
Put in a transfer request.
Rattle out the pram already.
Paul says throwing a fish sup on a bottle iron brew. That sounds good to me. We were hoping Keith to be joined from Denmark.
You don't get the fish sup on the bottle iron brew. That comes to us.
Aye, true, actually. That's a good point. I thought that'd be my signing on fee.
No.
We'll see. We were hoping to be joined from Denmark by Record Sports Scott Burns, who's out there with the Hibs team.
Is he experiencing technical issues?
I don't know. He's supposed to join us at 6:30. There's no sign of him yet. But in the meantime, we've got a lot of feedback about the Rangers game last night.
Yep.
Should I throw some of those comments at you?
Yes.
Let's have a little look at what we've got. Dennis says, congratulations
Hold
to
on.
Oh.
Newsflash.
Yep.
Hibs are 5 minutes away. We've had to do Jamie McGrath, and then I'll jump on.
Okay, so there you go.
Scott Burns will be joining us, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a Sue Cook episode.
Well, on Rangers, Dennis says, congratulations to Rangers for weathering the first half storm from Panathinaikos and then turning the tables on them. Far from falling flat in his first series competitive encounter, Martin has shown that he's far from clueless. No doubt the welcome appearance of Sir Alex in the dressing room after the match will have added a lot of confidence to the team. It now looks as though the Ibrox side could be a real contender for the title this season, as Celtic do not awake from their slumber in the transfer market. Robert follows it up by seeing a perfect result for Martin. Exciting end-to-end stuff. 2 absolutely stunning goals along with a goalkeeper masterclass from Butland. Gives Rangers a huge chance of going through in the heat in Athens. We talked about it obviously in our late night show last night, Keith, but, you know, a huge win for Rangers and Russell Martin.
Said to you last night, Daniel, that I was struggling to get my head around what we had actually just watched last night. And 24 hours almost later, I'm still not much clearer, to be perfectly honest with you. Mm-hmm. I'm struggling to decide. And what I found interesting, some of the comments after the game, Russell Martin said there were 1 or 2 players that were dropping into positions on the pitch that he didn't want them to drop into. And that furthermore, when they'd been training and doing all the stuff behind closed doors, they hadn't been making these mistakes, geographical sort of mistakes on the pitch. And I'm wondering if he's talking in particular about Max Aarons and Nico Raskin, because that part of the team in the first half, for me, just didn't function properly. And even if it was function as well as it could have done, I didn't see the sense and the logic in taking Nico Raskin out of that area where he can get in the ball, nip passes, drive at people, create stuff. And bear in mind, this is a guy who's a master of the art of midfield play. And he was getting shunted to the side to let a fullback come in and try and dictate the play. And Max Aarons was getting loads of the ball, loads of time, loads of space. And he didn't look comfortable in there in that sort of, you know, directing the traffic role. So I wonder if that was, you know, if that was how Russell Martin wanted it to look. And clearly there's an emphasis on inverted fullbacks and, you know, clearly this is all part of his philosophy. But I wonder if it just went a little bit too extreme in spells in that first half. I say that, but there were moments in the second half when it looked similar again. I actually felt that Raskin, for the majority of the second half, played about 10 yards in off the touchline, further, more central, almost in a sort of left channel position. And I thought from there, he was able to get on the ball more and influence it more. And that's what you want. You want your best players on the ball as much as possible. And for me, what Rangers were in the first 45 minutes was they sacrificed Raskin, one of their better players, one of the most creative players, for him to drift out wide and for Aarons to get in the ball. And maybe Aarons just didn't have a very good match last night. Maybe there'll be bigger and better things to come. But ultimately, he's a fullback. Who do you want dictating play for the middle of the pitch? And why do you want that? You want your midfield players doing it because they're better at it.
Yeah.
So that I wonder if that's one of the things that Russell Martin was a bit unhappy with, in terms of that's not what he expects or not what he wants to see. It certainly didn't make a lot of sense to see it. All that said, Rangers come out of that game with 2-0. And let's be blunt about it, they could have been 5-0. It could have been 5-0 by the end of that 90 minutes and the tie would be over. Igamani header, wide, Dowell header onto the roof of the net. Raskins had 2 shots in quick succession, great saves for the goalkeeper. And Raskin's superb reverse pass put in Finlay Curtis for a shot which got hacked off the line. So there was a lot of opportunities there for Rangers to actually kill the tie stone dead. Yeah. Before even having to worry about getting the flight to Athens. And yet, at the same time, the way that Rangers played, they were so disjointed, I felt, in the first half, that they could have also been 3-0 down. So how are you supposed to... There is no back catalogue to judge it against, other than, unfortunately for Russell Martin, the back catalogue, the closest one we've got would be what happened at Southampton at the start of last season. And there were a lot of these mistakes, overplaying, out from the back, kind of full-backs abandoning their positions, centre-halves getting really stretched, and teams picking them off in those areas. Mistakes, in possession, sloppy passing. It absolutely killed Southampton last season. So there's the nearest thing you've got to a back catalogue. I'm sure that Russell Martin knows that he's made some mistakes there, and that he won't, he can't afford to be making the same mistakes, because that means you're not learning. So it'll be interesting. But there were 1 or 2 signs, kind of red flag signs in that first half, where it looked very like what you'd seen at Southampton. And if Panathinaikos, let's be blunt about it, had been more clinical, then they could have taken a 1-goal, a 2-goal, maybe even a 3-goal lead. And could you imagine how Ibrox would have responded to that?
Aye. And
how it would have felt coming off the pitch at half-time, and how the whole aftermath or the after-match press conference would have felt? So I think Russell Martin probably got away with one in that first half, was probably unlucky to only end up winning it 2-0 in the second half. But I think you take 2-0 all day long. And I think if you can finish off the second half of the job in Athens, then I think Russell Martin, it's a real big one for him, because this is his first European test as a coach. And if he can come through it against, it's maybe not Panathinaikos from 10 years ago or whatever, still Panathinaikos, still a decent scalp, bump them out of this round, and you've got the safety net of knowing, at the very minimum, you're playing group stages in the Europa League next season, or this coming season. And I think when Russell Martin was going into these games, knowing that he was up against the 8 ball, knowing there was so much work to do to change the playing style, to transform the squad, I think if you'd said to him 4 weeks ago, you'll take a 2-0 win to Athens for the second leg, I think he would have signed for that all day long.
Dennis in the comments says, last night proved Rangers need Dessers as first choice striker. Selling for £5 million doesn't make sense. It would cost more to replace him. I'd probably agree with Dennis, to be honest. £5 million in this day and age for a guy that's guarantees you almost 25 goals a season.
Well, and so fair play to Rangers then, because they've stood firm. They said, no, we're not accepting that fee. You need to get closer to what they believe to be a more realistic fee, or a more sort of appetising number for Rangers. We've just talked there about Daizen Maeda. Somebody comes in and offers Celtic 15 million, you're right. I don't even think there's a conversation for Celtic to have about that. Somebody comes in and offers silly money, however, there is going to have to be a round table and people are going to, give their sort of ideas as to why it's a good idea or a bad idea. With £5 million for Dessers right now, I think Dennis is right. I think it just feels like a bad idea. I don't think Rangers are in a position, unless they're working away behind the scenes and they've got something lined up that they're ready to press the button on as soon as this double header's out the way.
Yeah.
Because they can't change the squad, they've got what they've got, and they've actually, as we were discussing last night, Daniel, when you really think about it, now, how it looks by the end of the window, we don't know, but just in terms of this double header against Panathinaikos, they've got some heavy firepower. They've got decent options.
Yeah.
With Igamani, Dessers, Danilo. We're waiting to see, is this the rebirth of Danilo? It didn't really look like it last night.
Well, in the comments there, AJSC Tech says Danilo is better in the press room doing translations because he has the agility of Doc Cotton on an icy street. Slightly harsh, I think, but I get his point.
I think that was a big opportunity for Danilo last night, and I think he fluffed his lines. I mean, listen, again, it's the fine margins in it. He's connected, was it a left foot volley, kind of midway through the first half, and it took a deflection. It's soaring into the back, and it's going to burst the back of the net if it doesn't get a deflection, which took it round the post. And if that goes in, maybe the confidence levels goes up. Maybe he starts to relax. He maybe doesn't snatch at stuff. But I just felt there was a couple of instances when he was dropping back in deeper than he probably had to, and then he wasn't. He was failing to link up. He was failing to find his men. He was playing people into trouble, and I don't think he showed enough in that final third for you to say, right, overall with that 90 minutes, you'd start again with Danilo next week. I don't think you do.
Just before
he played his way out of it, to be perfectly honest.
Just before we hopefully join Scott Burns in Denmark, I know we talked about it last night, Keith, but having seen the first leg, do you think Rangers will get through?
Well, they're obviously in an ideal position with a 2-goal lead. Yes, it could have been better. Yeah, it could have been 3 or 4, but it could have been a lot worse as well. So I think they should take the 2-0. It gives them a real opportunity. And I think there's a lot of football to be played in this tie. I think next week's Wednesday night's game could be a long night for Rangers. However, do you know how to make it a lot less stressful? And we've seen this with Rangers on the road in Europe over the last couple of seasons. They have got the players to, play a very dangerous counter-attacking style, and we've seen them turn teams over away from home. And I just feel, I'm not saying they definitely need to turn anybody over, but if they manage, if Panathinaikos come out the traps and they're throwing the kitchen sink at Rangers, I think there's an opportunity there for Rangers to play cleverly, hit them on the counter, get it. If they can score the first goal on the night, I think that just about busts Panathinaikos' bubble. And I think at that point, if Rangers could go 3-0 up in the tie on aggregate, I think it's just about there. It's just about done and dusted.
I'm delighted, Keith, to say we are now joined all the way from Denmark by the one and only Scott Burns. Burnsy, how's it going?
Good evening, all. How are you? All good, yourselves?
Yeah,
Very
good Burnsy.
Thanks. You're obviously out there with the Hibs team, Burnsy. How's the atmosphere? How are they shaping up? If that makes sense. We appear to have lost your audio, Burnsy. I don't know if it's your headphones.
You hear me now?
There
we
you
can
go.
now. Yeah. We thought you were still tapping into your next door neighbour's Wi-Fi from Denmark tonight, Burnsy.
I'm trying to. Might get a better signal. No, I mean, I said the Hibs team have literally just arrived here 20 minutes ago, so that was apologies for the delay. I had to interview Jamie McGrath there, but they've had a bit of travel chaos before they've even lifted off. Same with their airplane, was there an issue with their airplane, and they had to wait for a part to be delivered before they could take off. So a few hours behind. So hopefully that's just the start of things, and from now on, everything will be smooth for David Gray and his troops.
I'm not sure it would really fill me with confidence if I was sitting there in my charter plane and somebody said, "Oh, sorry, before we take off, guys, we're missing a part."
I was thinking that, eh?
I think they were. I think the team, in fairness, the team were pre-warned this morning. There was an issue with the plane, so they had to.
Oh, good. That makes it fine. That's fine, guys. Planes are Snyder.
I think it was only one wing. It's all right.
That's fine. Well, I'm glad
I've got a few wingers in the squad.
Well, Burnsy, I'm glad you made it over there for a start. But are Hibs in good spirits ahead of the game tomorrow night?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I mean, obviously they had great success last season, a great season where they finished third. I think they've strengthened well over the summer. I think they're a better squad now than they were last season. So the fact that the only issue for us, for every Scottish club at this stage, is that they haven't played any competitive games yet. But seeing that Midtjylland, they've only played the one domestic game. They played Odense at the weekend, so they'll be ring rusty as well. But that's always the issue for the Scottish teams across at this stage.
I quite fancy Hibs, Scott, and I know they're probably the bookies wouldn't agree, but I just think the way they ended last season was so impressive. I think they've built on that over the summer with some additions. I think they're going to buck the trend of Scottish teams doing all they can, celebrating winning a place in Europe, and then doing nothing with it and being, kicked back out again before the big clubs are even back off the beach. I think Hibs, and I think it would be a statement victory as well, because Midtjylland, I think, go into this, they'll fancy their chances. They'll have looked at Scottish clubs, outside the old firm, failing to really land any blows in the European arena. I just got a good feeling for Hibs in this tie. I think they might surprise people. I think they might sneak it over the two legs. What do you think?
I think they've genuinely got a chance. I know Midtjylland, we spoke to them today. They're obviously extremely confident. They're used to Champions League football rather than group stage football. So they're taking the group stage football probably as a gimme that they'll get there. But I do think that this Hibs team are very good. I mean, as I said, and if they can build on from last season, then there's no reason why they can't get through this tie. I mean, and wouldn't it be great if we could end up with 4 teams in the European group stages for the first time ever? It would be. I mean, it would be great. I mean, whether that's in the Europa League or the Conference League, but I genuinely think that this Hibs squad and what they've done this summer is stronger than last season. So if they can kick into gear right away, I don't see any reason why they can't get through this time.
I'm going to go all out here, Burnsy, and I'm going to tip a 1-1 first leg draw over there, and I think that'd be a great result for Hibs to bring home.
That'd be an amazing result if they could get that tomorrow night. Another Scott in the comments says, he thinks Hibs could get a result tomorrow. And we saw in yesterday's draw for the next round, Burnsy, if they do get past Midtjylland, it's Norwegian side Fredriksen who they'll get in the next round. Look, obviously, this might shock you, but I'm not an expert on Scandinavian football. But you'd imagine a little bit of an easier tie than Midtjylland.
I think that Midtjylland, as it stands, that this is the hardest tie out of them all, even if they drop into the Europa Conference League. This is the big hurdle to get across. And if they do get across it, then it gives them a massive opportunity for making the group stages for the first time.
Do you share Keith's confidence that they will get a result tomorrow night?
I think that, I think they can get a result tomorrow night. I think you looked at Midtjylland at the weekend, they drew 3-3 with Dens. They didn't look very good defensively. And the one thing about this Hibs team is they've got pace to burn at the top end and quality. And I can see them getting a lot of joy there. So I would definitely, I would definitely fancy their chances.
I've got to be honest,
Keith, love to hear.
I was a bit worried about this Hibs tie, but you guys have talked me round.
No, honestly, I genuinely think this is the start of a new dawn for Scottish teams in Europe. I think we've gone through summer after summer of navel gazing and thinking, how's that happened? And where did they come from? No. And it's just been embarrassing. And but I feel that Scottish football, I think we're on a period of progression. I think we're on the up. And if I'm right, then I think our clubs are now better prepared and better equipped to go and deal with, even though Midtjylland, I accept, they've got so much more experience and they'll fancy their chances. I just think Hibs could give them a bit of a bloody nose, and I'd be delighted if they did.
Burnsy,
before we let you go, what is on your itinerary for tonight? Is it the Hibs press conference or what's next?
Yeah, we did. We spoke to Jamie McGrath there before the game, so we're doing an audience with Sir David Gray after the match. So he'll give us a bit of an insight into this first European game. So you'll get all that across all the Daily Record channels over the course of the evening and ahead of the game tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And after that, then it'll be home and back to my hotel room for the night.
I was going to say maybe a museum or something, like a nice quiet night.
A museum? What's that museums do you go to that open from 8 o'clock at night?
That's a good point. Maybe just a quiet one then with some cocoa in the hotel room.
Cocoa. Okay.
Is that her name?
You're losing internet connection there.
Well, listen, Burnsy, I hope it's an absolute cracker for you. As always, it's a pleasure to have you on the Hotline Live. Thanks so much for joining us. And fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, Burnsy. Enjoy it.
All the best, lads. Take care.
Cheers, Burnsy. Record Sports, Scott Burns there, Keith, all the way from Denmark. Just before we finish, Keith, I feel that we should once again remind our viewers and listeners of a special...
Last chance.
Yeah, a special edition of the Hotline Live, which we're recording tomorrow with none other than former Rangers director Paul Murray.
Yep, so former Rangers chairman.
Of course.
So last chance, guys. We're going to do this a little bit different from the normal ones. We're having it pre-record. So if you've got questions that you want to put to Paul Murray or you want us to put to Paul on your behalf, then here's your last chance. File them in. Daniel, you can deal with the details. But, get involved, be part of the discussion. There must be things that you want to ask, and this is your chance.
That graphic that we just put on the screen there, that's pinned to Record Sports Facebook page, X account and Instagram. If you want to ask Paul anything at all, leave comments on there and we'll get them. And I think it'll be an absolute cracker, Keith. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too, Dan.
Aye. I think on that note, that brings us to the end of tonight's Hotline Live. Sorry, I'm getting sticky in the comments for calling hot chocolate cocoa, which is probably fair enough. And Paul says I'm usually going out the window with a Rembrandt. So there you go. Coco Chanel as well. Aye, on that note, thanks very much for all the comments. We really appreciate it. We will be back at the same time tomorrow, 6 p.m, to do it all again. If you want to get involved in the conversation, please do so.
Yeah, because we're back as normal, 6 p.m. tomorrow, and obviously we've got games to look forward to. With Hibs with that really fascinating away game in Denmark, and Celtic getting ready for the season with a head-to-head with Ajax on the banks of Lake Como.
That's it. Plenty to talk about, and we hope you can join us at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Keith, it's always a pleasure.
Cheers, Dan.
And thanks for watching. Cheers.